All right. Now, we have the next presentation. We have Kathy Bailey, Bill Lingsch, and Kerry Wilden to talk to us about the Hurricane Picket Line project for 2021.
I'm gonna get rid of my chat. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of this page here so I can go to the brief mode. Sorry. Okay. Everybody see the screen okay?
I think so.
Okay, good. Thanks, everybody, and good afternoon. Thanks, Joe, for the introduction. So I'm going to spend some time briefing the Hurricane Glider effort, the 2020 summary, and also go into a little bit of the 2021 plans. I'm briefing on behalf of Kathleen, who's out on vacation celebrating a milestone birthday by hiking through the mountains out west. So kudos to her and enjoy that. And really, I'm tag teaming with Dr. Kerry Wilden as well. And really, I'm going to do sort of a high-level brief and then segue into her getting into the specifics of the Gulf of Mexico and the GCOOS region. And also like to just sort of make a special sort of call out to Ben LaCour, who has moved on. Kathleen took his place, but a lot of the summary slides and the slides that I'll be using that were generated by Ben. So I really appreciate that as well. And you're also going to see that there's some duplicate slides between Carl and I, but I think Carl spoke to him so eloquently, I'll be able to just skip over them. So just a little background, and most people know this, but the idea of the buoyancy gliders is to monitor the ocean temperatures, or for the hurricane specific effort is to monitor the heat content in the ocean in that upper 100 meters of the ocean, and to ultimately improve representation of that ocean component in the ocean models when they're then coupled to the atmosphere model, and ultimately result in a hurricane intensity forecast. And these observations are also critical in the analysis of what happens during the storms to these ocean features and post-storm events. And we will discuss more about the number of gliders and the regions in the brief. Carl touched on this. You can't overemphasize it. I mean, he said it eloquently. Without the partners, you can see the complexity of this. You can see it broken down by regions. It's amazing on the biweekly calls how well coordinated and the team works together across the different regions, GCOOS, MidAtlantic, GCOOS, Socorro, and throughout these oceanographic environments that vary in the challenges. But without the provided logistical support and outside funding, and as Carl mentioned, the other mission gliders that also contribute, like a HABS mission that it still provides the salinity and the ocean temperature to the DAC for use in the model. So just a huge call out to that, and it wouldn't happen without it. So the hurricane intensity includes a lot of complex mechanisms. It's the inner core dynamics of the storm, the upper level atmospheric conditions, and that air-sea interaction. And it's that piece, that air-sea interaction, that heat content that we're trying to capture in with the ocean gliders. And what drives most of this in our region, as you can see, are some ocean features that are very unique in the different parts of the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. The Atlantic warm pool, which is a seasonally driven body of water in the Caribbean, and that's also influenced by low temperature and warm temperatures, and low salinity waters coming in from the Amazon River and the Orinoco River, the Gulf of Mexico with the loop current system, and the eddy shedding that takes place within that environment, and capturing that. The Gulfstream, the Florida current, that also influences extreme weather events off the eastern U.S. seaboard. And when you move up off of the mid-Atlantic coast, the cold pool. So it's these features that we're trying to capture with the gliders that are greatly influencing the hurricane intensification. I think Carl showed this slide. The 2020 was obviously a super active year. I think 11 named storms, a total of 30 named storms, but 11 names that actually made landfall, of which 8 were in the Gulf of Mexico. So as most people are aware, that was a very hard year in the Gulf of Mexico. But you can see that the deployments throughout, quite an increase from, if you look in the lower right of the slide, you'll see what the goal was, and we well exceeded that goal. But if you look back even to 2019, a 59% increase in the amount of glider days as that season gets longer, that we are experiencing. That is very critical. But just most importantly is those profiles, and getting those profiles back through the DAC and through the communication systems and back out to the models. And also in the lower left, Carl emphasized this as well, that the NOAA partners, but in addition to that, the collaboration with the Navy and those other missions that we talked about. So a very impressive year, with 2021 coming up, anticipated to be another very active year. We're hoping that we can maintain this level of glider deployments. So a big part of this is getting the data to the glider DAC, to get this data that's, quality control data. And in addition to that quality control data is to have all the proper metadata attached to those data that come through there for the end users, that grab the data from those communication systems. And as you can see here, a lot of institutions, 16 here, including AOML, Navy, IUS, NDBC, and others that are in support of this project. It's a big project, and we had a very successful year in getting all those total of profiles through and out through the DAC. And this is just a real quick slide right here of the data flow from glider, from the collection of the data from the glider. And you can see it takes multiple paths, one through the glider DAC in the middle there, out to the data buoy center, where Dawn Petraeus is a big part of that effort, and gets that out to the telecommunications gateway and out to GTS, and then eventually out to the Navy models. And other paths for this data as well, to OAR, to the telecommunications, and through the NCEP data tanks, and to the NOAA models, RTOS, RTOS DA, and HWRF POM. So very, a lot. It's quite a operation. It's complicated, but the folks that we have working on this and making sure that this works are phenomenal. And it has been extremely successful and very consistent with it being up and running throughout the hurricane season. So we can't ignore, we have to talk about that Navy collaboration piece. As you can see, that has been a huge part of the gliders, the assets of the gliders, and the agreement that we have, where we fund the batteries and the shipping of the gliders and the deployments and recoveries. But as you can see, 25% of the hurricane glider days, of the total glider days, were Navy gliders, as well as a significant part of the actual profiles collected, 45%. So that collaboration and agreement that we have with the Navy is huge. We expect that to continue this year. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But Carl mentioned C-Note, and this is very much in line with legislation that drives by Senator Wicker, generated this in 2018 to basically coordinate uncrewed maritime systems with universities, private sectors, and the Navy. So, and then within the annex of that legislation, Annex 24, establishes the framework for coordination and collaboration between NOAA and Navy. So that is really this hurricane glider effort has just been a huge success within the legislation, which essentially is law on making that happen. And Admiral Ocon has highlighted this in many of his briefs. And part of the steering group for UG2, we have 2 Navy representatives on the steering group, one from Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command, which is the Admiral staff, and then over at NavOceano as well. So they're on the steering committee helping us drive as well. One big thing, and I don't want to, I mean, the takeaway for this, we mentioned this, there's a lot of analysis going on to how much these observations are improving, are getting captured, are being, or improving the models. And with RTOS DA coming on this past winter, and you can see here just from an example where over at Sally, where that information, the glider information was collected and ultimately on the right gets into the operational model, RTOS DA, and the model is representing what's going on. And Scott Glenn from Rutgers briefed this morning some efforts that are going on with Chad Lemke's and Sikora's deployment of the HAB gliders that are collecting salinity and temperature as well, and really capturing in some deep cold water that you can see in the glider data and is now showing up in their RTOS DA. So there's significant analysis being done to see the value that's being added, and it is showing that. I guess I'll get to the questions when I get to the end of the brief, if that's okay. So just real quick, I just want to go down through the different regional association here on the Mid-Atlantic Bight overview that is overseen by the GCOOS, the regional director there, executive director, Dr. Gerhard GCOOS, excuse me, and some of the lead PIs there, Dr. Scott Glenn, Dr. Travis Miles, and Dr. Robert Tide up at HUI, who does the Gulfstream sustained operation as glider operations as well. And just wanted to kind of share some of the pictures, and this really shows the complexity and the collaboration of all of our partners and what goes into to make this happen. And I just want to go through each one of the regional areas just to sort of focus down on them, on what they're doing to make this happen. And again, you can see how the different deployments from even the Department of Environmental Protection, HUI, and the different contributors there. And then in the East Atlantic part, that Sikora director, the regional director for Sikora is Dr. Deborah Hernandez, and her lead PIs there, Dr. Catherine Edwards from UGA, Skidaway Institute of Oceanography, and Dr. Gustavo Ghioni with NOAA AOML. And you can see here, sometimes there's a little bit of fun involved when the ocean's nice when you go out on deployments. But again, you see that on the left there, the leveraging and the sharing of the diversity of the gliders that go out there. And I think the picture of the remora, I think Catherine's had some pretty big challenges with remoras that take home to the gliders, thinking I guess they're a shark and they're gonna get something out of them, but actually disrupting the dynamics of the vehicle and creating havoc at times. And then going down the Caribbean, the regional director down at GCOOS, Dr. Julio Morell, and his lead PIs, Dr. Patricia Chardin Maldonado with the University of Puerto Rico and GCOOS, and Dr. Doug Wilson at the Virgin Islands. And again, just a huge amount of leveraging within that region as well in the deployments, and they have a large area, as you can see, that they cover in their operations, and those have been extremely successful as well. I'm gonna not show any. I'll mention GCOOS. We know Barb, we've heard from Barb today, but really Curry's going to cover the Gulf of Mexico side of this. I'm not going to speak to this at all, but you can see here Dr. Kerry Wilden, Kevin Martin of USM, Stephen Howden of USM, and Chad Lemke of USF, all big parts of the success in the glider operations down there. Carl summarized this in his brief, this slide right here. It's just an awesome year. That largest number of autonomous in situ obs in support of hurricanes. So over a 50% increase in obs, that's huge. And really, one thing I want to mention, the barriers that came up with COVID, and yet, in many cases, people had to basically quarantine for 14 days prior to deployment. So they had to isolate themselves in order to be able to go out on the ships and deploy these gliders, and they were willing to do that. And really, we had no loss of missions for the most part due to COVID, even given the constraints of that. And Carl covered the most of that as well. So 2021, we have a plan. We have submitted a plan to Navy. It's based on the level of assets that we received last year. We're still waiting as of right now. Navy's doing a exercise in deployment of their vehicles. It's called the 30-30-30 exercise, where they're deploying 30. They have 30 ready to go and 30 being refurbished, and trying to maintain the op tempo to keep those gliders in the water. That exercise will go on until the middle of June. So after that exercise, we'll have a better feeling of what assets will be available from the Navy, which will be a big part of that effort. But we do have a solid plan in place and ready to go. We're having bi-weekly meetings. We've actually kept those going ever since the end of the 2020 season throughout the calendar year, preparing for the next year. We have the NOAA funding in place for the 12 gliders to support the batteries, the deployments, the recoveries, and the shipping of those gliders to the local regions. And as the season progresses, right now, like I said, they have identified 4 for sure, 2 deep, 2 shallow, and in additionally, they have provided. They're going to provide 6 Alamo floats as well. There was a couple people have mentioned in some briefs about the OMAO RFP, and so some of the funding for the operations for next year throughout the regions will depend on the outcome or the availability of funds for that 3-year effort. And some of that money actually includes operational funds for 2021. There's a challenge as we move forward. Some supplement funding is going away this year and the rest next year and fill the gap funding. So that's going to create a little bit of challenge over the next couple of years. And we always continue to look for and add partners and leverage opportunities. And this is just a slide where we actually put out a, if there are more systems available, we have a plan for those additional systems. And this would be as much as 8 more systems from the Navy. So in summary, the hurricane gliders, they're making a difference in hurricane intensity forecasts. The models are now simulating these observations, and without partnerships, I can't say it enough, but I'll say it again, this would not be feasible, and we continue to learn a lot about hurricanes. And really, there's a lot of folks, we mentioned PIs, and they're critical, but there's so many people behind the scenes that are making these glider operations work, the techs, the engineers, the people that actually go out on the boats and deploy these systems. And it's all of these people together that make these operations successful. So just a huge kudos that goes out to the entire community to make this happen. And my last plug, and for everyone who has not joined UG2, the Underwater Glider Users Group, please do, whether you own a glider or you use the data from the gliders or want to be a part of the group. And with that, I will open it up for questions. Sorry. Yep.
Hey,
Still
Bill?
there? Yeah.
It's, Pat Hogan.
Hey, Pat.
One of the last bullets that you mentioned was the gliders are definitely having an improvement or an impact on intensity forecasts. Can you quantify that, or has it been quantified at all?
Well, I mean, I'm not a miler. Okay. I know there's been some, Scott, I use some analysis to show that. And there's a lot of data now where gliders, were co-located with storms, and then looking at the models. And so that's going on. And I myself cannot quantify that, but definitely that analysis is going on. Maria did some before she transferred to her new job. And that is going to continue that analysis to help quantify that.
That could play a real important role for getting people, to buy into future.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, at the end of the day, you have to show the so what factor. And I agree 100%. And that is being looked at.
Yeah, I can just comment. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
I can just comment a little bit on that too. So throughout the off season, if you will, non-hurricane season, we've had almost weekly meetings as a subgroup to the hurricane glider, the larger hurricane glider group. We've had some sub meetings with regional representation to look at exactly what you are asking about. So what impact are the gliders having in the new NOAA operational model for RTOF's DA? There have, my understanding is there's been some changes with the model because it was beta last year and now it's operational this coming year. So figuring out what changes have been made in addition to how we as operators can continue to provide data to help best help the model for the prediction and forecasting is something that's currently going on and will continue into the season, especially the start of the hurricane season, as we're trying to target these essential ocean features. So we'll have additional, hopefully more information as more gliders are going out into this upcoming hurricane season.
And Curry, you said you meet weekly or bi-weekly on that?
We're meeting weekly right now.
Weekly.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Carrie, based on what you're looking at for 2021, in a perfect world, how many gliders would you like to see deployed, and in your professional opinion, would really make a difference in not only the intensity forecast, but also the track forecast?
Can you hear me now?